Welcome to Gruber Power Hour. I'm Erika.
I'm Pete Gruber. How are you?
Welcome.
Thank you for joining us. Our image back there is AI generated, and if you notice, it put UPS in there and it spelled it correctly, right?
It's spelled correctly.
Even the three-letter ones sometimes befuddle you AI, so this one is good. Today, we're going to talk about UPS systems and battery maintenance and what happens during a UPS maintenance visit and the importance of finding a reliable UPS maintenance organization.
Yeah, you already found it.
Yes, exactly. Well, that shortened this podcast.
There we go. That's all, folks.
We're all done. Yeah. So if you've installed or are thinking of installing a UPS system in your facility, you need to consider how you're going to manage the UPS installation and maintenance. Some of the things that are important are you want to make sure that the UPS that you end up purchasing and installing is maintained in accordance to the OEM's specs and instructions. Exactly. And there are two types of service providers. There are OEMs, and then there's independent maintenance like us. And the advantages are pretty clear. OEMs, of course, make the equipment.
Yeah.
And they're going to be very good at their brand, their piece of equipment.
It's a niche.
Yep. But data centers are never monolithic. They are always multi-vendor environments with lots of different brands. So if you're OEM only, you're going to be faced with getting a whole bunch of vendors in there all the time.
Yeah, you're going to have no idea who to call when the Ghostbusters are who you should call.
Yeah. So that's where independent maintenance shines, is that we are in the business of servicing every brand, every style, every type of UPS, every technology. We even are able to service equipment that is decades old, unlike the OEMs, which tell you after 8 years, end of life.
Sorry, end of life. Yeah, they just want to sell you more stuff.
We don't have parts anymore, and you need to upgrade. And we're going to give you 1 year, and then we're going to stop giving parts. We're going to stop service agreements and all that. Companies like us are still servicing equipment 2-3 decades ago.
Absolutely. You ever gone to like a phone store and your phone is perfectly fine, and they offered you like $50?
Yeah.
That annoys me. And they're going to resell it, refurbish it, and resell it for like $1,000.
Yeah. So, yes, independent maintenance, there are advantages to both, of course, and we are able to maintain various technologies as well in the independent space. Again, a static UPS manufacturer, if they can't do your genset.
No, absolutely not.
If they don't make lighting inverters, they're not going to be able to handle that as well. So you get a broader range of services with
and
independent
APC
maintenance.
can't work on Veritiv either.
Right. You know, for a while they tried, about 2 decades ago, they were starting to consider the market share that they're losing, the OEMs, by not addressing all the other brands.
Right.
So they hired people and they tried to put something together, and it was
too
unsuccessful.
proprietary.
Yeah, it was unsuccessful.
Nobody wants any other company in their proprietary software and hands in the cookie jar. Nobody wants that.
And can you imagine Liebert going to APC and saying, hey, we need to buy some of your parts?
I would love to see us all, work together.
Well, that happens in different industries. The more progressive industries, I find, like, AI, electric vehicles, those companies are much more futuristic thinking.
Yeah, a lot of mergers happen in that.
Yeah, and they realize that the market is so large.
Yeah.
There's no need to fight over the scrap, over scraps of business, because it's a feast for everyone. So
yeah, we don't have street corners that we claim.
Yeah. So cooperation is far more important, and any smart business realizes that you always capitalize on synergies.
Absolutely. Synergy is absolutely necessary. That's why sales organizations and all the different departments working together as one really make that company completely efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I find humorous is that this late in the game, in the technological revolution that we're in right now, some of these old OEMs, the UPS, the critical power OEMs, still hold that old mindset that a competitor is an adversary.
Yeah.
and they are not to be supported. And so it's one of the few industries where that mentality and that
Well, then
mindset
keep your
still
enemies
exists.
closer and come together.
Yeah. So, getting back to what you need to create your data center. Well, you may want a generator, a genset. And the reason that's important is because when your UPS, your static UPS drops power, or I'm sorry, your utility drops power and your static UPS is now doing the work of continuing to supply power, it has a finite resource with your batteries. And after 7 to 15 minutes or so, you're out of juice again.
Yeah.
So that's why you want for longer term outages, which is sometimes the case. Most outages are, in the few minutes range as the grid begins to shift loads around and compensates for that outage.
Right.
But if it's something extended,
Like a large utility power outage or a large transformer down, and it's going to take hours.
yeah. So that's where your genset comes in, and now you're at the mercy of no longer battery for storage, but fuel.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Fun story. I real quick. I had a guy talk to me yesterday. He was like, well, what is the UPS going to do for me? And I told him, the whole spiel. And then he goes, okay, well, let's go ahead and get, a site visit set up and this and that. And I said, okay, what kind of generator do you have? He goes, oh, I need that.
Okay.
I about dropped. I was like, yes.
That's why these customers come to us, is because they typically need to consult. They need education.
Yeah.
This is they have other priorities. So that's where we come in, is to guide them through the process. So what you want to do is make sure that you find a service organization that has experience, first of all, of course, that has a nationwide capability and in some cases global capability.
Absolutely.
That they have a reliable network of field engineers and a strong reputation for 24/7 service.
Absolutely.
You're not going to get that mom and pop to, come out of there,
2 in the morning.
Yeah, at 2 in the morning, especially if they have 2 emergencies. Now what? Who gets the
they can't be
attention?
Stretch Armstrong.
Yeah. Right. So why is UPS system and battery system maintenance important? Let's go down that rabbit hole for a moment.
Yeah.
Your UPS works to keep critical loads in your data center working during emergency conditions, power outages, basically. So this helps you deliver power to your systems, your servers. It could be lighting in a large stadium. It could be evacuation lifts, all the essential equipment, including security, fire alarm, anything that consumes electricity, basically.
Yeah, it keeps the critical load working in those emergencies.
Yeah. And then, of course, you have business continuity if you're a manufacturer, if you're a software house and you've got lots of people coding, yeah, exactly. Do you want to eliminate all downtime because it's a productivity problem?
Right.
Huge one. So what does your system need to be in good working order? Well, it needs certain monitoring. And there's product in your critical power system that is a wear type item. Batteries rank right at the top.
Absolutely.
By regular preventive maintenance visits, and we recommend every 6 months.
Yeah.
Every time we go in, we check the health of your batteries, and we let you know how much life is left in them.
Yeah.
The worst time to find out that your batteries don't have capacity is during the power outage.
Which is the majority of people who discover that.
Yeah, they think they've got 7 to 15 minutes, and they only had a half a minute, and suddenly the UPS goes down as well.
Yeah. And it costs so much more after that than the initial investment.
We've got some questions coming in.
Ooh. Does it cover protection and switch gears?
It does. Our service agreements are broad, and they can be tailored to your unique installation. So if you want to throw switchgear in there, that's available.
Yeah,
as well.
and if you reach out to us during the engineering process and even the architectural process, then we'll be able to, of course, bring that infrastructure to zero downtime.
So talking about wear items in a critical power system, we have batteries, of course, that ranks at the very top. But then you have internal things to the UPS, things like fans, for example.
Yep. Capacitors.
Your typical fan in a UPS is it's an AC motor with bearings, and the bearings eventually wear out. They gum up. They get sticky, and what happens is it begins to affect the amount of airflow that's going through your UPS, or in some cases, the bearing sees and you don't get airflow anymore. Now you're overheating. You're creating overheating problems.
Yeah.
During preventive maintenance, the fans are checked, the CFM is checked, the age is checked.
Yeah.
The battery systems, we have monitoring devices that we use on the batteries that tell us the capacity, the amp hour rating, and how much life is basically left in that battery.
Yeah, and those are what we also consider our remote monitoring, right?
That's also available. Yes, we have remote monitoring for those devices. For yourself and for us, we can monitor it as well. Capacitors. Here's something that most people don't consider. A capacitor is a filtering device in a UPS inverter. Electronically, it's the equivalent of a short-term battery.
Right.
It stores DC. And what it does is it evens out ripple, for example, if you're trying to get perfect DC. Well, capacitors have a shelf life and a service life, and it's about 8 years.
Yeah.
After that, they become resistive. They lose their effectiveness. They make the inverter work harder because they are resistive.
Yeah, you change the air filter in your air conditioner. Why wouldn't you do it in your UPS?
Exactly. One of the things that we provide is an auto notify system for customers or prospects, for that matter. You don't have to have a service agreement with us. You tell us when your batteries were last replaced. You tell us when your caps were last replaced, and we will actually track the next replacement cycle for that.
And we will be the ones that remind you that it's time.
Yeah. And then you make a decision. Do you want your OEM? Do you want your service provider to do it? Do you want us to do it? It's up to you, but it's a free service. It's called Auto Notify. And the first of every month, we have hundreds, if not thousands of those going out notifications.
Yeah, we do.
All right. And capacitors, again, getting back to those, what happens if you don't change your capacitors? Well, as they get resistive, you have the risk of fire. There was in Texas, there was an installation about 15 years ago or so where the building burned to the ground.
Oh.
It was eventually attributed to capacitor problem in a UPS, and it was an ugly lawsuit. It dragged on for a couple, 3 years. We were even invited at one time to be technical experts, and fortunately we dodged that. But,
yeah, I would too.
Yeah. So, but they will catch fire. Here's another story, for example, in this particular article. In 2018, a ship supporting an offshore oil rig narrowly avoided a fire when a UPS with considerable wear and tear started smoking. The smoke triggered the vessel's fire alarm, and the batteries were disconnected from the UPS. However, the vessel then offshore was operating without any backup power.
No backup power.
And that was, of course, a whole bunch of regulatory
What do they call that?
issues.
Ghostwriting, don't they?
Ghostwriting, yeah. So if there was another mishap without backup power, then, of course, pumps may be malfunctioning, and then you have a whole bunch of potential environmental disasters.
Yeah.
Oil may be seeping into the ocean. You know how it goes from there.
That's not a situation I'd want to be in.
Right. So what you want when you get your UPS eventually, or have them, is a good service agreement.
Right.
And that will cover the whole working operation of your UPS. The batteries are central to this. They are wear and tear along with the caps. And you also want to make sure that the UPS is properly sized for the loads that you're placing on it. And that's where companies like us come in.
Yes.
We will take a look at your electrical system. We'll take a look at the loads you're going to be putting on it, and then make very specific recommendations about what kind of service you need for that UPS.
RFEs have a strong reputation.
So you want to make sure that your UPS is properly sized and it gets the proper maintenance from day one.
Yeah.
Now, most OEMs will sell equipment, of course, and then you have a 1-year warranty.
Yeah.
During that 1-year warranty, most people think, well, I'm home scot-free. I don't need to do anything. I've got that warranty. Yeah. If you get a service agreement, we call it the first-year service agreement with our programs, That is a service agreement that's at a much reduced price, but
Yeah.
it's for the first year of warranty. And the
Right.
reason that's valuable is we'll come out twice that year and do preventive maintenance on your UPS,
Yep.
even though it's new and under warranty.
And that does not void your warranty.
It does not. No. In fact, it helps it because it, reduces the likelihood of any kind of failures or downtime.
Right. And
if
we can
find
catch
something.
anything that might still be under warranty to save your wallet.
Mm-hmm. Another thing to consider when you're getting a UPS is clearance issues and where will the UPS be going? A common mistake that's typically made is, will the freight elevator be able to handle the weight of that UPS and battery cabinets up to the 27th floor of a high rise? In some cases, that answer is no.
Yeah.
So you have some considerations there. In those cases, what we do is we remove the loads or the batteries in the cabinets, for example, if it exceeds the load rating of that elevator. But again, that's what our project managers are skilled at identifying is, are we going to be able to get that UPS to your location?
Right.
And then you have other issues. Controlled environment, but let's stay with the clearance for the UPS. And I'll give you some examples, having been doing this for 40 years. We had a UPS battery cabinet that needed to be replaced on a mountaintop here in Arizona.
Oh my gosh.
The county, Maricopa County, maintains a transmitting station on top of one of the mountains to the east of here. And there is no road to get there.
No, flatbed and a pallet jack. No,
Well,
just
actually,
kidding.
it was helicoptered.
Really?
Yes, they contracted for a freight helicopter.
Yeah.
And we have cool pictures of this cabinet hanging from the helicopter, being airlifted up to this mountaintop installation.
We should have put a wrap over it with your face and your face just flying across the mountain. That would've been-
For some advertising,
Yeah.
yeah. Of course, our guys were airlifted up there each day.
Oh,
And,
how fun.
so that was a case where it was an unusual. We have another one at the Deck Park Tunnel here in downtown Phoenix. This is a UPS that feeds pumps that will eliminate the water when there's a severe rainstorm, because you don't want your freeway tunnel to fill up with water.
Of course.
And we ended up having to work down in that tunnel, closing off a part of the street in order to replace some of that equipment. There was rigging involved because it was very heavy. And then the final one was, I remember taking the side out of a commercial building on Camelback around 24th Street. It was a glass building,
Oh, like the Esplanade.
4-story,
Okay.
in that area. Yeah, by the Biltmore.
Oh, okay.
And in order to get an air handler in there, which was about 7-8 feet or so, wouldn't fit in the elevator, they had to take off a part of the outside of the building, the glass and everything, in order to insert that air handler into
Oh
that data
my
center on that
gosh.
floor. And again, it required permits, it required cranes, it required
Yeah.
closing off part of Camelback for a couple of days at
See,
times.
I love projects like that.
Mhm.
I think the more intricacies and coordination, the more fun.
So those are kind of some of the challenges that require an expert opinion as to what kind of issues may present itself with your site.
Yeah.
And again, that's where we come in. Excuse me. So the eventual environment where your critical power is going into should be a controlled environment.
Yeah.
It should be dry, temperature controlled, and have the appropriate fire protection.
Yeah. Not a warehouse in Florida in the middle of summer.
It should be clean and dust-free. The reason that's important is dust will clog up the UPS ventilation
Yeah.
and cause overheating because you have fans inside this UPS. Consider putting your UPS batteries into a separate room.
Yeah.
And this can help minimize cooling requirements. This is especially true if you have wet cells, and some
Yeah.
installations still use those. With a wet cell installation, you're going to have venting issues, special code requirements, because this is going to expel hydrogen gas while it's
Yeah.
charging. And then, of course, you have hazardous waste inside, not waste, but hazardous material inside the batteries, sulfuric acid.
Oof.
Keeping that out of the data center environment is important.
Right.
In those cases, you definitely want to separate your batteries from the electronic portions of the uninterruptible power system.
Mhm.
Allow adequate spacing around the UPS. For serviceability, there are doors front and back, panels on the
Venting.
sides. And in order to service this equipment, there are clearance issues that have to be considered. So you don't want to put it up against the wall, for
No.
example. Again, that's where we come in. We'll help design. The OEMs also have a lot of information about optimum clearances around their equipment.
To bring that into a visual, that's like putting an air fryer up against the wall and turning it on.
Hmm.
It's going to go kablooey.
And then you have cooling issues. I used to get a kick out of this when I was doing environmental consulting for digital equipment. I was the guy that went out and prepared a customer for that mainframe installation. And of course, critical power was part of that because how much power do we need?
Right.
Well, should it be clean power? Well, of course. How much
Yeah.
cooling do we need?
A
Those
lot.
types of things. Yeah. So that's also an important part of it. And then we have
A good UPS, like controlled environment. What would you say the Fahrenheit would be? Would be a good steady Fahrenheit to keep it at?
74 degrees is the optimum for the equipment. And that was back in a day when they had human operators in computer rooms. So they had to keep people happy as well.
Yes, I would assume.
But the machines can actually operate at even lower temperatures than that. All right, Jesse's got a comment here.
Well, I was just going to ask if you wanted to tell your story that you told about under the access floor, what you found.
Oh, sure. Okay. That's right. In our last podcast, we did one on
yeah, we
access
did.
floor. Some of the maintenance required to work on mainframe equipment required us to pull floor panels on an access floor. These are 24-inch tiles. You have 2 suction cups. Throw that down on top of it, and then you have a handle, and you pull up the tile. And what you'll find underneath typically is dust bunnies, a lot of electrical cabling, a lot of data cabling, and such. And the best one is when we popped one of those one time in a data center, we found a 6-pack of beer. And that was for the operators at night because it keeps it nice and cool under there. The access floor, you see, acts like a plenum.
Did you leave it?
No, we asked for some.
Oh.
Kidding.
Very
But
big.
so access floor is definitely part of the equation in a data center. And cooling is important because access floor has vent tiles. And you're actually able to place those vent tiles in front of the equipment at the location where it's
Yeah.
drawing air from.
And the doors.
So you have a UPS, and you can't simply install it and forget about it.
No.
Isn't that how Vinny would say it? Forget about it.
Forget about it.
Yeah. You need to know that it's performing well, and so regular maintenance and monitoring is critical.
Yeah,
The easiest way, of course, to do that is get yourself a service agreement.
Yep.
2 preventive maintenance visits per year. There are even monitoring systems available where
Yeah.
we can keep.
And you said it, and we don't forget it.
Installing and monitoring remote alarms. That's something that is also
Yeah.
highly recommended. If the power drops out, that IT manager or
Yeah.
facilities manager should be notified. It should start a process of resolution.
Right.
And then manually checking the UPS and battery systems on a regular basis.
Yeah. Going in and performing your own visual on it.
They have made it so easy these days. The old component level UPSs, you literally had to open doors and you had
Right.
to take readings and probes and all of that.
I actually got to see a flywheel. We have a flywheel. I thought that
We
was
do.
We do. It was brought in. Elvis was like, "You were just talking about this. Get out here, check it out." So I went and checked it out.
Is it here
Yeah.
physically?
Yeah.
Oh,
Go
that's
check it
that
out.
round
Yeah.
toroidal transformer. Okay.
It was really cool to see. It's not obviously a component, but I mean, it's cool. It's batteryless, but
Mm-hmm.
it's such a little runtime. I couldn't believe how little of a load it really holds.
To give our audience a visual on this, you probably are aware of gyroscopes, the type that kids play with, right?
Cool.
And it's a ring that has some weight to it, and you have a string, and you start that spinning, and it will spin for a lot of kinetic energy for some time.
Yep, few minutes.
Yeah. Well, the rotary UPSs or the flywheel UPSs, it's the same principle, except there's a lot more mass.
Yeah.
Stores a lot of kinetic energy. And when the power drops out, that wheel that had been fed by an AC type motor now is no longer getting power.
Right.
but it has so much momentum and kinetic energy that it continues to run. And usually it was like 20 seconds or so.
Yeah, not even a minute.
Yeah, depending on your load, of course.
But you got to run out there.
Right.
Yeah, pull the lawnmower. That's crazy. I don't recommend those.
So that's right. We have one in stock right now.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, that's an older unit.
It is, but it was really cool. I was told, by a lot of the seasoned professionals here that they never saw one or they've only seen one in like a decade of time.
Yeah, that'll be a good social media content.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
But yeah, we were talking about like the time scales and replacing parts and the maintenances and having a good response time also.
So yeah, you definitely want to careful monitoring of that expensive piece of equipment that is critical in keeping your equipment up and running.
Yeah.
And let's see if there's anything else here. You'll have a single point of contact with us. And also, if you work, if we have the service agreement on your site, you can be guaranteed that we'll be able to service all the brands of equipment.
All of them.
Time for preventive maintenance, we come in one time. Your risk of downtime becomes one time rather than multiples by bringing in 7 different vendors. And there's some definite advantages to working with.
It's really important also to know your business needs. You've got to really know your load time. We have a lot of conversations where, they don't necessarily know their load time or they haven't experienced what that would look like. So I don't recommend hours, like unless you're getting battery packs and external battery packs. And like he said, having a very controlled environment is so important. Otherwise, it's just draining the life of those batteries, and the shelf life of all of your components goes bad so much faster.
So this is the point in the podcast where we get into breaking news. Breaking news. And let's see what we've got coming across the wire here. Ooh, this week, a mysterious explosion at a Google data center in Iowa caused widespread outages across the internet. The explosion reportedly happened when thousands of servers simultaneously tried to process the question, whatever happened to Kamala Harris?
Sorry.
Now, the data. So this data center explosion affected multiple Google services, including Gmail, Google Docs, and Google Maps. Though honestly, Google Maps was already directing people into lakes way before the explosion.
And so was.
Isn't that true? So following this incident, Google released a statement saying, "We apologize for any inconvenience caused by the outage," which is the same thing I used to say when my brain stopped working during a date.
I'm loving this news today.
The explosion, they said, was so powerful that for a brief moment, people actually had to use Bing.
Oh, no.
I know. Thoughts and prayers to those affected.
My consistent.
So the incident has led to calls for better data center safety protocols because apparently, have you ever tried turning it on and off again isn't a sufficient emergency response plan. What's our IT manager's favorite saying is
it off and turn it back on. Is it plugged in? It's so common for people to think that.
And finally, in related news, they say Bing servers remain completely intact, primarily because nobody was using them.
Yeah.
But speaking of AI data centers, Microsoft announced that they're building a new facility that uses liquid cooling because apparently even AI needs a pool party every now and then.
Ain't that the truth? These are good.
So the facility will house thousands of AI models, or as tech bros call them, digital roommates who actually pay rent.
Did you say I don't pay rent?
That do pay rent.
Oh, do? Woohoo!
Yeah. A new study shows that AI models in data centers now consume more water for cooling than some small towns.
Oh, wow.
Finally, something AI and I have in common. We both need constant hydration to avoid having a mental breakdown.
Indubitably.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and that's your news.
And get this, one AI model became so advanced, it started asking for its own office with a window view.
I would presume it would.
They gave it a screensaver instead.
Oh.
So there you have it. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Well, thank you for coming to Gruber Power Hour. I'm Erika.
I'm Pete Gruber. We'll see you next week. Thank you.
Next week.